my mentors, senior professors, scholars, researchers, and my dear students, brothers and sisters. Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim. I'm extremely grateful to be here during this wonderful conference. Lots to percolate in our mind. Yesterday's keynote address and the subsequent sessions were enriching the minds of the people, especially the younger minds, and also how do we percolate this deeper and transform this into emotions so that emotions will push us forward to create a society, to create an ideal society, which Dr. Ambedkar envisaged as liberty, equality, fraternity. Now, in order to go deeper into this liberty, equality, fraternity, my presentation that I'm going to give here is limited to Dhamma, human dignity, and social transformation. Now, as human beings, when we evolve from the basic consciousness, which we call as the animal consciousness. And from animal consciousness, we tend to force ourselves to develop what is called as self-consciousness. Now, this whole passage of time that we see when we evolve as human beings, when we try to push ourselves towards the self-consciousness, then the battle of justice comes out. When we have to face this battle of justice, it is all about sharing resources and controlling power. So human beings, whenever we face in our society, ever since the beginning of human civilization, we have been facing these challenges. And whenever there is this injustice or inequality sprouts out, philosophers emerge and they try to breed alternatives so that we can prosper, develop a society which is peaceful and harmonious. In order to understand that, of course, we had so many philosophers during the ancient period, during the time of the Buddha. But I'm focusing more on the Buddhist way of seeing things, how Buddha emerged as one of the greatest social doctors who talked about human dignity and also about humanity. Now, when it comes to the term called humanity, there is no word called Buddhist humanity or Christian humanity or Muslim humanity. Humanity means humanity. Humanity is the same for everyone. Now, I'm going to start with the basic idea behind developing the thought of human dignity. Human dignity is intrinsic worth that belongs to everyone. Every human being has this intrinsic worth. And somehow we have been caught in the realm of greed, in craving, and that pushed us towards segregation, towards hierarchies, towards graded inequality, and so on. Now that's why I mentioned here, human dignity is the intrinsic worth that belongs to every human being simply because they are human. It does not depend on caste, class, gender, religion, ability, wealth, education, or social status. It is inherent, equal, and inalienable. Now, we have, in the modern world, we have numerous definitions. United Nations have given its definitions as well about how it places human dignity, and also the Constitution of India. While during the time of the Buddha, when Buddha got enlightened, it's very important after he got enlightenment, there is a 7 weeks of enlightenment. So during that course, during the 5th week, Buddha met one Brahmin by the name Aham Brahmin. So Aham Brahmin comes and asks about what is your teaching? What is this enlightenment all about? And Buddha was explaining. And then he said, is it open to all? And then he says, yes, it is open to everyone. Then this particular Brahmin was not happy, and he said, I will not listen to this. And he walks away. And that's how the Pali colonial texts have diarized it as Ohunk Brahman. And that is considered to be the seeds of revolution in the Buddhist world. Now, how Buddha opened the Dhamma to everyone. One of the greatest chantings that we have in the Buddha Dhamma is Ehi Pasiko Opanayako Pachatam Veditaho Vinyuhiti. Come, anybody can learn this Dhamma. It is open for all. It is up to you to practice, get trained. And if you don't like, you can leave it. So that is the kind of openness Buddha was giving through the Dhamma. And not only that, there were several other people who challenged the Buddha. For example, the Bharadwaja Brahmana who challenged how we can define what is Brahmin. And they also advocated the superiority based upon caste. And Buddha objected to it. And he said, Na jakka vasala hoti, na jakka hoti brahmano, kamana vasala hoti, kamana hoti brahmano. He said, not by birth, one is determined by his highest or best way of living, but by his action. So one should be graded based upon his action. One's worth is defined based upon his action. So these are all the very strong words which Buddha gave to the people through different suttas. And not only that, Buddha also said that this religion should reach everyone, this Dhamma should reach everyone. And in Sarnath, he gave the greatest discourse after giving the discourses to his 60 disciples. He tells them that go to the different directions. Dasa Disa, he said 10 directions. And work for the people, liberate the people. So he said, Charata Bhikkhave Charikam Bahujana Hitaya Bahujana Sukhaya Lokanu Hampaya Athaya Hitaya Deva Gunasana. He says, come on, monks, wake up, let's go out. Spread the Dhamma. Work for the majority who are suffering. Work for the welfare of the people and make everyone happy. And that's the essence of this first setting up of the wheel. The wheel is pushed based upon this energy. The energy that Buddha gave was compassion. And this compassion has been exhibited by the teachings of the Buddha Dhamma. Now, while talking about the social rights and equality, in this picture, we have Prajapati Gautami, who was debating with Ananda about including women into the order of the monastery, the monastical order, which was earlier confined with only monks, were men. And this revolutionary change, which brought a different aspect of Vinayas. Vinayas are the disciplines that is being practiced. It's a set of rules that monitor, that helps the monks and the nuns practice the Dhamma more diligently. Now, this revolutionary change happened during the time of the Buddha's period. Not only that, there were others who also worked after Buddha passed away, after he attained Mahaparinibbana. There were so many leaders who took this forward. Now, unfortunately, our education system had this limitation of speaking only about what happened during the time of the Buddha, or at the most, Ashoka. But after that, there is a huge vacuum when we talk about history. Now, we all know how Buddhism came to South India. Of course, it was a great mission of Ashoka, but before Ashoka, there was this proselytization that took place among the Buddhist community, among the monastic orders, how it went on. And when they went from one village to another village, they were not just simply talking about Dhamma. The way they were taking the Dhamma was more social. Say, for example, yesterday somebody was quoting about Kalam Sutta. So Kalam met Buddha and asked question, and hence it became Kalam Sutta. Sigalo met Buddha and asked questions, and when he replied, it became Sigalavada Sutta. Meghiya met, and then it becomes Meghiya Sutta. So that's how the suttas were written and documented. Now, while doing so, the monks were more concerned about the welfare of the people, and that's how Buddhism went across different parts of India. Not only in India, but also it went towards Southeast Asian countries and also towards the European, the Central Asian part as well. Now, to understand this proselytization, the campaign for humanity, we tend to see world map like this. Now, what happens is whatever that we are, like whether we do research on history or archaeology or even understanding politics and economics, we always have this construct of North and South. So we have this psychological assumption that North is developed, South is not developed. So you see the North America, South America. And then you see the Northern Hemisphere as Europe, and then the Southern as Africa, which is not developed. And same is the case with India. India is always projected as North India and South India, where North India always have the significance, various political reasons could be. But then we have been nurtured in that way. And this nurturing part in the education system is also more based upon aviational psychology. So we tend to see from the flight, from the top above, and we connect ourselves based upon what we call as the roads. But we don't see the sea. We don't see the life in sea. And that's the reason why I believe that we have to see map like this, upside down. We have to rethink, because how at that time world was being seen, why everybody was so much concerned about India, and how people reached from different corners of the world. They all reached through sea route. And so sea route happens to be one of the important ways of transporting the trades as well as the treasures of different philosophers, particularly Buddhism. Now I'm trying to draw closer because my research was also well connected with Southeast Asian countries, and I was culling out lots of information about the contributions made by the South Indian Buddhist towards Indonesia, towards Central Vietnam, and also parts of Cambodia. And there's a huge amount of influence of South Indian Buddhism in these places. I visited one place in Sumatra. There's a place called Jambi. And Jambi has produced great scholars, very vibrant scholars, who are all trained from South India. And it was from Jambi that great masters like Atisha from the Tibet emerged. So all these are all connecting passages which I'm trying to do through the heritage work. So I'm quickly jumping on to the contributions, especially from the South Indian literatures. Now, when you visit the South Indian literatures, especially the Tamil literatures, the Sangam literatures, it has major influence of Buddhism. Among the 5 great epics that we have in Tamil, 3 are influenced by Buddhism and 2 are influenced by Jainism. So there is no connection, literary connection, with that of the Vaishnavism or Shaivism. It all came later. So Kundalakesi or Manimekale are some of the revolutionary work, epics that has been completely trivialized. And it has been brought up in such a manner that nobody talks about Manimekale or Kundalakesi. But if you see in terms of social equality, I think Kundalakesi and Manimekale plays a major role, especially when it comes to women empowerment. How the Bhikkhunis challenge the system of patriarchy. And not only they work for patriarchy, against the patriarchal system, but also they voiced against untouchability and caste. Now here, later on in the period of the 4th and 6th century, we have great legendary scholars like Bodhidharma, Diganaga, Dhammakirti, Chandrakirti. These are great leaders who contributed not only for spreading the Buddha Dhamma, but also talking about social justice. So here, There are so many leaders, but I will be referring only about Dhammakirti. Dhammakirti wrote a great contribution. It's called Pramanavartika. In the works of Pramanavartika, he, in the first chapter, he categorizes 5 important things. And I'm just reading it out. He challenges Dhammakirti, critiques the Vedic Brahmins, the unquestioned authority of the Vedas, the belief in a world creator, the quest for purification through ritual bathing, the arrogant division into castes, the practice of mortification to atone for sin. These 5 are the marks of the crass stupidity of witless men. This is a statement of Dhammakirti, a great revolutionary. Not only Dhammakirti, Diganaga, Chandrakirti, many of them challenged the caste during the 6th and 7th century. And if you see the Chinese texts, Master Taishu, Master Xuanzang, and also the Huineng Heart Sutra had made efforts in addressing the issue of caste, which directly affects human dignity. Now, many of us are aware of, or maybe it might be new to some of you here, is about how such a vibrant movement which was there once in South India got impoverished and became weak, and finally it was destroyed or appropriated. Now, what happened in North India was more on invasive way of destroying. I would not blame any community here, but then the rulers who were fundamentalists, they took over and destroyed the important monuments that represented humanity in the North India. In South, what happened? They appropriated the temples, and what they just did is replacement of the idols with that of their idols. So this is basically replacement of idols. But then if you talk about the architecture, the architectural features would be more connected to Buddhism or Jainism. Now, if you ask anyone to define the old architectures of South India, especially the old temples, they would not be able to substantiate why such an image is being brought in. Because the Buddhist temples or Buddhist viharas evolved from one phase to other phase. So it started with statues, and then it went for infrastructure and architecture. Then finally it went for paintings. That's how we have Ajanta Ellora. In fact, when Ajanta Ellora was discovered, it was the Paraya regiment from Madras which actually helped to discover. So many of us are not aware of this, that it is the role of the Paraya community of Tamil Nadu, which went as an expedition in Ajanta and Ellora in Aurangabad, and they discovered. And that's how Smith and others brought this great contribution of Ajanta Ellora to the world. Now, these are the important temples that I studied, about the architectures as well as the iconographies, highly influenced by Buddhism. In Tamil, we have this terminology called Yali. Yali means the dragon, the imaginary dragon. And the interpretation of this dragon is only available in the Pali canonical text and not in any other text. So there are so many. And in fact, the architectural features, we have 4 kinds of architectural features in South India. We have the Pallavas, we have the Chalukyas, we have the Pandyas, and we have the Cholas. These are the 4 major influences. The Vijayanagara architecture came very much later, after the 15th century. Now, the fall of Buddhism also saw the emergence of inequality that came out. And now we see how when the temples were being taken over by the Brahminical forces, which tried to legitimize caste system, at the same time brought a way of life that is based upon inequality. Now, when the transition took place, now the whole question is, how did this transition took place? How it was easy. So the state patronage which the Buddhist community was receiving came down. That's one of the biggest loss which the Buddhist community saw. And then the powers went to the Hindus, and at that time the Hindu rulers took it over and controlled these temples, because temple also hosted lots of reserves for important jewelries and other precious stones. Now, while this transition was going on, I'm jumping towards the late 19th century. There were revolutionary movements that happened in the 11th century, as well as in the 13th and 14th century, but I'm not going to do because of paucity of time. Then quickly coming towards the 19th century, the Buddhist revival movement started in South India, and under the leadership of Pandit Ayathidas. And Pandit Ayathidas was not only spiritually involved with the Buddhist movement, but also he came out with lots of social issues, particularly when he came to caste system. And in fact, he was the first person to say that we are not untouchables, we are not Dalits, we are Buddhist, we are Sakyan Buddhist. So these kinds of identities were being brought during the time of the late 19th century, and it was well recorded. And we have these records, even in Panadura debate in Panadura in Sri Lanka, we have these extracts. And Dr. Ambedkar also emphasizes this with the help of Lakshminarasu's work. Now, why I brought this is about the dignity, how dignity is connected. Dignity is connected about how we are seeing ourselves as worth. Whether we are worth in communicating, whether we are having the worth of representing a rich culture, whether we are worthy enough to represent a linguistic community. So when you are being deprived by all these qualities or worthiness, then you become a person who doesn't exist in the society. And that's how this terminology called Dalit came. In fact, the Hiranyakashipu was also called as Dalita Hiranyakashipu in the Sanskrit. Now the word Dalita means you don't have history, you are completely destroyed, you are scattered. So that's the uprooting of one's dignity. And South Indian Buddhist Association, under the leadership of Pandit Ayathidas, addressed this. And they came out with so many journals like Oru Paisa Tamiran and other newsletters through which they try to encourage people to involve, participate and agitate. So this movement of revival was very powerful in South India, especially during the time of 19th century. And at the same time, there is also a cultural religious appropriation where Buddha was also considered as the 10th avatar. So there is also a parallel movement which was going on to accumulate and assimilate all the former Buddhist community under one fold. So the politics of identity plays a significant role when it comes to population enumeration. So this population census, in order to have the Indian national movement play a majority role in campaigning for independence, the Dalit communities and the tribal communities were brought inside the fold of the Hindu community. Now it's very interesting to note that if somebody says that he is from a Muslim community, definitely he or she has access for Quran and they can read Quran. And same goes for Christian community. You ask any Christian, they'll be having access for Bible. But it's very interesting that being a Hindu, not everybody has access for the Vedas and Shastras or Puranas. It's very much limited to one particular community. That alone has a strong message that these communities which were not allowed were never being part of this particular religion at all. Now, we also saw violence erupting after the post-independence. Violence are still continued, and we have violence that is being honored. I don't know what is the honor in killing someone. We have something called honor killing, and honor killing is happening everywhere. So I find this what Dr. Ambedkar during the time of giving the Constitution in 1950, he comes with the statement that we are entering into a life of contradictions. Now, what kind of contradictions we are living in when we talk about dignity and humanity? We go to a hospital if our parents or relatives have been admitted. We go to the hospital and we ask for blood, and we are so restless in asking for blood. We ask for A positive blood, B positive blood, but there we don't ask Lingayat A positive blood. We don't ask Paraya A positive blood. We don't have the question of Kshatriya blood group, nothing like that. And there we need blood. Now, all these departments, the blood donation banks which have been established, have already passed on the blood to every community. And I don't understand, still we are hanging around with the psychological problem of identifying ourselves with one particular community. Now, how could we, when my body has got blood from different castes and different religious groups, how can I claim that this body is of one particular caste? Now, we are so lost with that. And not only that, we are not giving up. So we are still into this contradictory lifestyle. Our teachers and professors, they teach beautiful scientific classification, how human beings evolved, how from ape we have evolved. But then when they come back home, they do all kinds of chanting and pujas in the name of God. Now we are living in this contradiction, which I call this as cognitive dissonance. This cognitive dissonance have to be erased in our mind. As long as this cognitive dissonance stays in our mind, we will always be catching something that doesn't belong to us, something that does not belong to humanity. While walking towards humanity, it is possible only through democracy. And there are forces that works against democracy. Even during the time of India's independence, there were forces that worked against it. There were forces that talked more about the capitalistic way of establishing a country. There were forces that was very much vehement about taking our nation towards a regressive movement. There were people who were status quoists. They wanted their ideology to be imprinted in our society. But then there were people who gave rational thoughts. This rationality which brought us the Indian Constitution has to be preserved. Hence, we as human beings, taking the values of the Dhamma and standing by ourselves to protect this constitutional democracy, strengthening parliamentary democracy, and engaging, civic engagement is very important, where participatory democracy becomes possible. I think this is more than enough for all of you now, and I would now rest myself to take beautiful questions from all of you. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.